An important 45 minutes of discussion right now. I'll just give a brief profile of the panelists who are seated on dais. Ms. Shanti Menon is principal and founder of the Dean's Academy, Whitefield. She's daughter of eminent Dr. E. Sridharan, the Metro Man of India, and spouse of Mr. Hari Menon, co-founder and CEO of BigBasket.com. She is winner of multiple awards, including Women Leadership and Innovation Award, the Ideal Principal Award 2014 and 15, and winner in the category of Vision and Leadership 2014-15 by the IBCI School Brilliance Awards in 2015. We welcome you to the panel. Next we have Dr. Sharda Chandrasekharan, who is Director at Whitefield Global School and also at Next Waves Consulting. She is an eminent educationist specializing in innovative learning and methodologies. She has extensive experience in molding second-run leaders in school. We welcome you. Next we have Dr. Lalita Ganapathy, who is the principal of Chrysalis High, Kadugodi. She is a noted educationist with over 20 years of experience and has done multiple roles including special educator and counselor with FCC and KSWB. She has won multiple awards for academic and team excellence during her career. We welcome you, ma'am, for the panel. We also have Professor Pallavi, who is the principal of Sindhi PU College with over 14 years of experience in education and also 4 years of experience in corporate relations. She is also a management professional with commendable experience in hospitality, education and customer care. She is winner of multiple awards such as the Best Citizen Award and in 2011 by the Karnataka Police News Journal and Shikshana Ratna Award and Women in Entrepreneurship Award. We welcome you, ma'am. And we also have architect Umesh Kumar Jia, who is a TEDx speaker and founder of DQ Labs. He has over 13 years of extensive experience in architecture, product design, digital sculpting, animation, model making and business strategy. And is also the mastermind behind the online sketch development course, which is being appreciated by students all over the world. And he enjoys mentoring students to help them utilize their skills with high efficiency. We welcome you, sir. Now it's over to the moderator to take forward the session.
Thank you. I think we will have brainstorming and take away something very valuable, I'm sure, with such eminent panelists. A very warm welcome to all of you. The theme for this panel discussion is managing people, data, processes to foster school improvement. Like we did have a lot of talk in the morning, this is about school leadership and optimizing the available resources that exist, and also thinking of creating new resources, as a leader. Finally, when we talk about a process, there are two elements, the human element and the data element. So at the human element, just to set off the discussion, at the human element as a leader, it is imperative that there is a promotion of human excellence, and also a requirement for confrontation of mediocrity, because we're talking about a system, and balancing the two, because human resources are very important. Second, every data has a very, we all know in today's world, they have very powerful narratives, very powerful stories to tell. So as a leader, how does a principal or an academic leader make use of this data, not just to understand a certain, a certain situation, but very importantly, identify a problem area, identify an area of concern, and then remediate that for the larger interest of both the process and the people, and managing people and data, put them together into a process which we all know, requires a lot of first ideation, then planning, implementation, communicating certain things to the stakeholders, and monitoring all. So with this little thought, I open the discussion. And to be fair, because I would want to start with architect Umesh, just to make a light remark that you are the lone warrior, among the army of men. So I would like you to start, sir.
Good morning all. It is actually good to be the minority on the stage because I get all the attention. So before I deep dive into that, I would like to give a small brief of what we do at DQ Labs so that you understand. And I'll take a couple of examples of my institution and where we are using technology to get data-driven insights and how we are using those data-driven insights to help our students, our faculty and our management. Right? So DQ Labs stands for Design Coefficient Labs. We help students who are as young as in the 7th grade till the level of PG students to help them turn their hobbies, creative hobbies, into professional career. So what does that mean is, let us say, students who are good in doodling or handicrafts or photography, poetry, etc., who are not primarily interested to do engineering or medical or law professions. Okay, so we are giving them exposure and the opportunity to explore the creative professions which are like architecture, fashion and design. Okay, so we mentor right from 7th grade onwards. So we do not run a school, but we have a studio wherein children who are interested to pursue these kind of careers, they come to us and we mentor them. The majority of the mentoring happens after the school or during Saturdays, Sundays or holidays. Alright, so that is what we do. Now, when we are talking about training these kids, mentoring and training these kids in not theoretical subjects but practical hands-on subjects, right? So there is a lot of creativity that comes out, like students create stuff, right? So they basically draw sketches, they make posters, they build apps, they create models and etc. etc. All these are the creative works they come up with. Okay, so evaluating that kind of a creative stuff is a real challenge. Okay, because all that is subjected to the subjectivity of the evaluator, right? Unlike in mathematics, so let us say you are asked to solve a problem and it has only one solution, and you know objectively that yes, he has achieved the solution or not, right? In the subjective exercises, we cannot have this objective marking in that, right? So we basically use a different 3-point rule to evaluate this kind of a subjective work, and we process the data and we give it back to the student and also to the teacher and to the management. So I don't know how much time I have, if I can, yeah, so in this subjective testing tool, what we do is we give an opportunity for the student to self-evaluate his own work, right? So once the self-evaluation is done, the work goes to his peers and they will evaluate on the student work. Once these two levels of evaluations are done, it will be gone to the teacher or the expert who evaluates that work on top of it. So what happens is, there is a clear understanding of the student about his skills from his perspective, from the perspective of the students in his class, and also from the perspective of the expert. So there is a clear distinction of his perception of his own skills rated by himself and also rated by others, right? So what happens here is it becomes easier for the teachers and also to help students themselves to understand their perception of their own skill. So we also call it as metacognition. It is very important that the children develop this metacognitive skills, that is understanding of their own knowledge of the knowledge that they have. Okay? Unless that happens, we cannot see improvement in learning. Right? So in fact, we have built a technology platform because there isn't something available like this in the industry. So we have ground up built this particular platform to evaluate the subjective testing, and we also have an objective testing tool which is very unique, and it's a world's first of its kind. Alright, in fact we have won NASSCOM's Design for India award for this objective testing tool. So we all know, alright, thank you. So we all know that in this ecosystem the most important stakeholder is the student. If the student doesn't exist, we do not exist, right? But how often do we ask the student, what do you want? Or what do you think your inabilities are? Where do you want improvement? okay, and somehow in the education system there is certain kind of opaqueness that has been developed between the student and the management or the faculty. Basically, I'm not sure, but when I was studying, we were very afraid to go and meet the principals and the teachers, because every time we go, they highlight something stupid stuff that we have done and they're going to penalize us, right? So in this using this technology platform, we have created a non-judgmental way of evaluating a student, and we also kind of collect certain information which no other platform so far has collected. That means, like for example, if they're solving a particular problem, there are only 3 ways they can solve a problem. Either they use a formula or a knowledge, okay, or they eliminate the answer options. If they have no clue, Jai Mata Di, random choice, right?
Okay.
We kind
Dr.
of
Umesh, Architect Umesh, now I'll
Sure.
give it to the next speaker. Just to sum up what you said, we would come back if time permits in the second round. You are talking about a creative space and using technology for metacognition so that the child understands what he or she is capable. With this, I'd request Professor Pallavi to give in her inputs.
Thank you very much. My humble obeisance to all the revered gurus on the stage and off the stage, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to opinionate on this topic. Even before we go ahead and understand how do we go ahead and bring out strategy, managing people, processes, and put data in place, I have a question which is not answered meaningfully till date, and that is, what is the whole objective of education? Are we only trying to address education just to disseminate knowledge? And if that's so, let's try and look back as to what the renowned learners have been commenting on education. Martin Luther, way back in 1962, said, any kind of knowledge or learning which is only going to call somebody educated would not be education in whole, but you have to consciously develop the character. Way back home, even our Chanakya Guru said the same thing. He gave us the 3 dimensions, and he said, if you have to talk, or if you have to call somebody a learned person, you first and foremost have to see to it that you give the person a clear vision. And what vision is this? A person who is learned should be able to see any other woman other than his as his mother. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, any other wealth or possession of importance should be treated as garbage on the street. The third dimension or the vision that Chanakya Guru emphasizes on is to see every other entity in this world as his own self. If we are trying to address these three things in the whole, and I guess we were not going to be having all these violences that we see in society today. Moving on, 5,000 years ago, Sri Krishna also said the same thing. In chapter 18, from 8th verse to the 13th verses, Krishna conclusively said, if a student of learning can understand politeness, steadiness, can give up greed, can understand that, respect to authority or a teacher, non-violence, tolerance has been imbibed, only then you would call a system as a part of education. Any other thing that is apart from these things, there are many other things that are mentioned, would go in the name of ignorance. So what are we trying to emphasize on is trying to build a holistic personality here. Do we have that kind of a system today? The grading alone going to determine whether they're going to be successful in life. When we go ahead and handle these challenges back in school, I have a lot of statistics here. 25 to 28% roughly of our students are stressed out. They are facing depression. 56% of our educated youth today are paying bribes for citizenry services to get the work done. It could be at corporation, it could be a police service, it could be anything. And who are these people who are actually paying? It is the 56% of the educated youth. Of course, there are uneducated people also who are paying bribes. But the ones who are paying and the ones who are accepting bribes are the educated ones. So are these statistics or the data not enough for us to introspect and see where we are flaunting? Moving on, I could go on with the statistic that could be glaring, because when we handle kids at the age group of 16 and above, we are also seeing school children, the teens from 7 to 14, hold parties and consume alcohol. And we as a country with rich heritage and culture, I'm just not talking about a few cities, but most of the metropolitan cities in India are facing these issues. So how do we go ahead and address these things? And if you are trying to isolate these things, I think there is no purpose of conducting or calling ourselves educators, because we are answerable for these changes at large. So I would request the panelists also to give us some kind of an input wherein we could come out with solutions, instead of trying to understand that even before we go ahead and climb a wall, let's try and figure out if the ladder is leaning against the right wall. So that is my submission to the panel.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Pallavi. I think the crux of what you said is something that is a common concern to all of us as a community of human beings first, and then probably next is teachers, because the amount of violence that we see around, and by violence I am not referring to the physical manifestation of violence, but then we see a simmering undercurrent of violence within the child, within each individual, probably because of the stress that the person is going through. There is, like I said in the morning, the core of all our activities are human beings, and no matter what our activities demand in terms of bringing in technology or digitization, but then the core human element cannot be disconnected. So with this thought, I pass on and I invite Dr. Lalita to give her inputs.
Namaste and good afternoon to everybody. Now the role of any leader, school leaders have changed. It is no more the academician, it is also, you are also an administrator. So you are part and parcel of administration and education. And the planning goes throughout the year. Now it's time for us to plan for next year, the teacher allocation, then handling manpower, especially when you have more ladies. And the generation, there are people who belong to different age groups, so catering to them, listening to them. Listening is a powerful tool. So there are a lot of situations where we have to listen, and one thing we need to take care is that we don't lose good resource and have less of attrition in the school. So how do we manage our team? That's one thing. And data, if we have a curriculum, there is audit wherein there is recording of the observations, which also will help us in the appraisal. And if we are specific, we can also give reasons why somebody is getting more than somebody, or otherwise we cannot just be generic that this one got because somebody's favorite. No, it doesn't happen. So statistics, data is very important now. And when it comes to administration, especially emails, now people communicate through those who don't write, they communicate, mostly the mails come, and all the mails need to be answered because parents, both the parents are working, and all the mails need to be answered. So there is always, I'm just sharing what we follow in the school. All the mails will be attended within 24 hours, and there is a closure to the mail, so we don't take much time. So either we meet in person, discuss, instead of sharing long mails, what we do is we meet one-to-one and then close it. Now all the classrooms have CCTV footage. CCTV footage is not, we can consider in this way because it helps us to save ourselves. When people question, there is always a footage, be it bus, be it in the classroom, if the child falls down. So there is a recording that we go through and see and then resolve. So all issues need to be resolved. So for all these things, these days, data is very, very important. Transport. In the beginning of the year, transport is a main thing. So if you are able to resolve transport, the in-house problems can be resolved at a better pace. Children can be settled, but transport needs to be taken care. So all of us work together and settle the transport. So overall, the principal, the leaders, also create leaders in the system, empower them, and all the training that goes in within the school should not go out. So we also create leaders within the system, whoever is capable of moving ahead in life.
Thank you, Dr. Lalita, for giving us inputs regarding the administrative processes, bringing together people, and very importantly and interestingly, I think the element of the CC camera was brought in because you're also looking at prying eyes all the time, and very importantly, in today's space, probably it's a security for the children, because we do talk about, like I said, there's a lot of simmering violence which can be manifested in whichever way. Now I invite Dr. Shanti Mohan Menon to give her inputs towards the panel discussion.
Good afternoon all, and thank you for this opportunity. Well, I would think that all of these three that we spoke about, people, processes and data, form the pillars of the school. People and processes, it's like a chicken and egg. Which is more important, the process or the people? Well, both are equally important. Both need to be sustained, both are dependent on each other. So I started with the processes. I would think that they're imperative to be there. Nothing can run without a firm set of processes, but that doesn't mean that processes have to be etched on stone. They need to be dynamic, they need to be futuristic, because as institutions which build the future, we need to have processes which will allow us to cater to what's going to be coming ahead of us, and something which we cannot predict ourselves. Processes, I think, should also be friendly to the stakeholders in the school and outside. So, it has to take into consideration the student, the teacher, the staff, the parents also, who are huge stakeholders of the school, which a lot of times we tend to forget as, the people who run the school. I also would think that we have to believe that processes cannot be ruled by the person who's forming the process. Processes should sustain beyond the person who has created it. And that's, I think, the bottom line of any institution running. The failure of an institution is when each person comes and creates a new process. It's so critical that processes, therefore, should sustain beyond people and time. I come down to who runs these processes. Of course, it's the people who are part of the whole system of us. I talk only from a school perspective because that's my whole world. So here the people are, again, the student, the teacher, the staff, the parents, the administrators. Well, the fact is that every human being is unique, different, has an individualistic idea of himself, and that's a known fact. The challenge is to keep all of this together, and the challenge is to work in synchronization to make that process running. So the biggest challenge is to identify in a person his strength, catapult that to fill in gaps of weaknesses that we have inside our teams. And this, I think, is extremely critical. One of the biggest learnings I've had over my years of being in the role that I do now is learning how to find a person's strength. Everybody has a strength, and I believe in that strongly. So learning to find the person's strength, not ignore his weakness, but identify his weakness and fill in somebody else's strength into this person's weakness so that we work as a cohesive whole. And that, I think, is very, very critical in a school scenario. When you talk of people, the whole school is focused on the students. I'm really not going to be focusing on that aspect at all, because our whole life is about the child learning, growth, his emotional stability, his life skills acquisition, all of the acquisitions that they have to do within those 14 years of them being with us. The focus should also be on the rest of the staff in the school. The teachers, the staff. Like I said, one is recognizing their strength, commending them for their strengths, for the kind of output they have. One of the words that Dr. Beena herself used in her inaugural, the keynote or the inaugural speech was using the humaneness to deal with people inside a school setup. Very, very critical. Like I said, processes are there. But the humane aspect of having to listen to their personal problems goes a long way in keeping the kind of ownership and responsibility back on people. So when we accommodate, we also buy ownership. And that, I think, is very critical in the kind of positions that we have when you're heading an institution. The second aspect of it is parents. Extremely critical to have them within your circle. They just need to be heard. Parents they have to be given a voice, allow them to speak, allow them to give you ideas. Of course, there would be ideal criticism a lot, but the openness to accept, the openness to keep your doors open and your ears open to their points of view is very critical in our positions. The final lot of people that you have to manage is those agencies, the government, those authorizing bodies, the BEO. Well, in my experience, the only way to deal with them is pat their backs and things will be fine. I'm sorry I had to say that. And of course, finally, I come to data. We've all been talking about how critical data is, something that was ignored a lot initially, but today everybody's woken up to the fact. We spoke about, Dr. Ramaswamy spoke about, Mr. Ramaswamy, spoke about using data to predict children's performance. That's just one aspect of what we do in school. We start looking at data to decide on admissions. What are the kind of things that parents are looking for in the school, and we start working towards it. What is the kind of teacher pool that we have? What are the kind of strengths that we have? What are the kind of gaps that we have? And we start working our training programs based on that. While we did talk about, again, Mrs. Ramaswamy spoke about in-service training being very low. I would like to be a little elitist here. We represent slightly urban schools where a lot of thought goes into working on that data to improve student performance, data to improve schools' performance, data to improve teacher performance. I think I more or less covered most of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shanti. The point that you made about processes being friendly is very, very important for all of us, as we understand that nothing can be process driven, because it is only the human beings who can actually make meaning to the process, add meaning to the process. And the fact that people and processes complement each other, and at the end of it, whether they are students or the parent community or the staff members, processes and data need to assist us to enhance our performances and take us to the next level and build the synergy, because that can be done only with human beings and not with processes. Thank you so much. Now I invite Dr. Lalita to give it. Dr. Sharada Chandrasekharan to give her inputs.
Thank you so much. You should not be the last speaker, neither the last one to eat the food. You will be left with no food and no points to speak, so I thought I will take up 2 stories to cover up whatever I want to say. Long back, one young girl, some 20-plus-year-old girl, was married into a big, huge Thakur family. Very well-off family. So as per their norms, the girl was supposed to cook food and feed everybody. Now that family has a 4th generation of elders. A huge dining table was laid. This girl cooked the food. She was ready to lay the table. All the elders have come. The eldest daughter-in-law came running with a huge stick in her hand. And she said, "Don't forget this, don't forget." This young girl was perturbed. What is that? She brought the stick and kept right in front of the dining table in a corner. And she said, "You start serving." This girl said, "Why is the stick for?" "Don't ask questions. My parents told me, don't ask questions. So I never asked mother-in-law. Mother-in-law told, I kept the stick." Now this girl was very intrigued. What is the stick going to do with this food serving? But she couldn't ask. They finished eating. Went to the mother-in-law. Then she asked mother-in-law, "Everything is okay, why the stick?" She said, "See, I was married when I was 18. My mother told, whatever your mother-in-law said, you better do it. So I did it. I never asked my mother-in-law." Now this girl was more intrigued. She went to this mother-in-law's mother-in-law. Then she asked that mother-in-law again, "Grandmother, why the stick?" That grandmother said, "I was married when I was 12. When I entered the house, my mother-in-law used to go around with this stick when she was serving food. So I kept the stick. Now this girl was more intrigued. She went to that great grandmother who is living in one room. She asked, nobody is telling me why the stick. So this great grandmother laughed toothless laugh. Ha ha ha. And she told, I have been waiting for 70 years for someone to ask me this question. When I got married, I was an 8-year-old girl. And I was supposed to serve food in an open corridor. There were so many stray animals. I was very scared. So I used to take the stick. Now we shifted to palace. But that system of keeping stick is continuing and nobody is asking me this question, Betty. Good you asked the question. Darlings, this is what is happening with the processes. As a founder principals, we will start a process. And the senior most teachers will tell the junior most, this is the process, you better follow. Now, nobody asks questions whether the process is redundant, whether the process is useful. Why did we put the process at that time? 11 years, 15 years, 20 years passed. So, the processes are important, but the change is also important. We should change with the time, and with the reviews and reflections, the processes have to change. Otherwise, we will be keeping the stick without knowing why we kept the stick. Nobody will know why the process is being followed. It is like a first standard teacher in one particular school when I went for observation told me, she finished the whole lesson in half an hour, she wrote the entire question answers on the board, and then I asked her, okay good, what is the objective? She said, what objective? I said, what is the learning objective? She said, ma'am, I am working here for 25 years. Nobody asked me this question. You came yesterday and you are asking me this question. Now, we had to stop the process. Yeah? So, processes are very important, but processes which are redundant has to be called off, written off. New processes which will not change the culture and ethos of the school have to be taken up, and we always have to respect the youngsters because they come with new ideas. They come with more newness. They are open. And when we are in an organization for a long time, involuntarily we will go with the blinder. So this is one part of processes we all need to look at. The second thing when we come to data, another story. It seems there was one king. He believed in untouchability. So one saint came. He said it's very wrong. You're not supposed to do. All humans are born equal. Next time when I visit your kingdom, you should abolish untouchability. The king was very nice man. He accepted. And next time when the saint came back, he saw the whole city with green and red colored dresses, people. He went to the king. And the king very proudly said, did you see I abolished the entire untouchability? Everybody is moving together. Now the saint said, how do you know? I know you will ask this question. So I told all untouchables to go in green dress. Now many a time, we don't understand the process, neither we understand the data. We misinterpret the data. Then we land up in green and red dresses. So the data which is given is to be interpreted well. As Mr. Ramaswamy said, data reading, big data itself is the biggest skill. Where is it driving us? Are we getting into red and green dresses? Or are we using the data for the right way? Like Mrs. Shanti said that. We people who are very progressive schools, we are looking into data everywhere. What kind of teachers are coming? Are the teachers skillful? Are they ready to take it up? How open are they for learning? And are they ready to understand the changing trends? This is where we are using the data. What kind of a parent clientele are coming? Now, here also we should understand one point. The parent who is coming to school is 32-year-old. He went to school 25 years ago. So his learning is there. He remembers, he or she, I'm sorry, I'm not gender biased. He or she remembers only that. Now when they come to school, which is progressive, they are not able to digest the change. I was taught cursive writing in LKG. So leave reminding, teach cursive writing. Is cursive writing in thing? Is cursive writing required where is the child learning cursive writing? Doesn't matter. I went to so-and-so school, they taught me this, so you need to take this. So now we also need to have the data. What kind of a parent clientele is coming? How are we using this particular data in first orientation of the parent to understand the progressiveness? So data is very important, but also interpreting the data in the right way is very important. And third one is people. When we come to people, people are again, they would have stopped learning long ago. I'm so sorry to say. We have to first, as the school, we will tell the people to continue to learn. The learning is lifelong. So when we say this, many people, inclusive of parents, they get taken aback. The reason is, when they are in 9th standard, their teachers told, "Beta, learn for 4 years seriously. Put in all your hard work. Get selected in IIT. Your life is made. You don't need to learn after that." Really, I'm saying these are the things which are told. So the 9th standard child is telling, after I finish my 12th and get into any of these institutions, I can stop learning. It is not that. Learning will continue. This kind of wrong information given to the child is making people think that I can stop learning after one particular time. But for that also we use the data to orient them, to know them. So this process, data and the people are completely interwoven with each other. We people, the leadership, we ourselves are a continual learners and continual improvers. We do not stop learning at any point, because what is happening today is redundant tomorrow. The change is coming like tsunami after tsunami, and we are surviving the tsunamis. And when we survive the tsunami, we are almost riding on the tsunamis with a lot of energy. But for that to happen, we need the whole lot of stakeholders to understand that this is happening only in pockets. It is not happening everywhere. For this to happen everywhere, every single citizen of this country must understand that learning and change both are continuous. It cannot be stopped. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Sharda, for that wonderful input, garnished with a lot of humor. I think we all enjoyed that. Well, it's a very valid point that you made, ma'am, that data needs to be made relevant, and I would link it to what Dr. Shanti Menon was saying, that processes need to be dynamic. You can't fix a process and say that, 20 years later also this has to be followed. The fact that we need to be open to changes, and the fact that because we are handling human beings at the center of it all, dynamism is something that needs to be integrated. Coming back to what Professor Pallavi was saying, I think the concern for all of us, no matter what roles we play in the academic space, the concern is that what do we make out of this knowledge or learning, because ultimately the aim for all of us is to ensure that every child who walks out, no matter what is the level of education, it could be primary, it could be secondary, it could be tertiary, but the human concerns remain the same, because all of us are a product and integrated with the kind of society that we are in. So the core aim is that every child, no matter what level of education he or she is going through, needs to go back as a finer and a better human being. And be it data, be it process, I think all of them need to synergize as far as the human element is concerned.